Welcome to the Fellas Podcast, the ultimate Formula One podcast for fans by fans, where we discuss all the happenings in the world of Formula One. Now, let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fellas Podcast. What an exciting race we had this weekend at Abu Dhabi. But before that, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all things the Fellas.
Buckle up, race fans. It's time to experience the Formula One Miami Grand Prix like never before. Feel the rush with a chance to win exclusive two-day race passes for the 2025 Formula One Miami Grand Prix. Immerse yourself in the high-octane thrill as the world's fastest cars zoom by on May 3rd and 4th. But that's not all. Relax and rejuvenate with a 3-night stay at the luxurious 4-star Serena Hotel from May 2nd to May 5th. Enjoy panoramic views, plush furnishings, state-of-the-art amenities, and daily breakfast for two. Your entry supports Benevo, a non-profit dedicated to fostering young racing talent, including 14-year-old prodigy Truly Adams, who's racing towards a future in Formula One. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of a lifetime and support the future of motorsport. Enter the Formula One Miami Grand Prix sweepstakes today. Fuel your passion. Support the future. Sweepstakes end on December 17th, 2024, so hurry before it's too late.
Today we have a special guest, treat. We have Ondar. Ondar will be joining us for this episode. So Ondar, please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ralph. And thank you, Simon and Ray, for being able to be a part of the podcast and talking about my absolute favorite thing, Formula One. So I'm Ondar Tarlo. I'm in marketing. I've been running marketing for a financial services company, lifestyle and motorsports for more than 20 years. Now I'm with Fastlane Drive, which is a new chapter of Fastlane in Orange County, California. And we are an exotic car club, social networking, as well as philanthropy group that was originally started in San Diego several years ago by some great people. So very excited to be able to share F1 and get into it with all of you. Thank you.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you on board.
Yes, great to have you.
So as I said, Abu Dhabi, interesting race, a lot happening, a lot of chapter closures for drivers and teams. What is your take, guys? Simon, let's start off with you. What's your take of the race?
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to make sure that we give a proper salute and to Lewis Hamilton. I think today he showed us that he's still a champion. He still has the wherewithal to be a great driver. So I'm looking forward to seeing him in the red and Ferrari, coming from 16th to 4th, especially on the last lap. I was very proud of him. I was very proud of Mercedes and how they handled that. I was proud of Russell because he could have really given Lewis a hard time in that last lap as well. And, realizing the moment, I think George Russell did. So I was proud of them in that sense. But overall, I was very surprised at the last race of the year, as exciting as it was. I was really a little disappointed in Charles' position at qualifying and where he was in 18th place. I was a little disappointed in Lewis, but we'll get into all of that. But it became exciting. I didn't want to stop. I had to let my dog out, and I think he suffered a little bit because I didn't want to stop the race and pause it, right? So very exciting race.
Good. Okay. Ondar, your opinions.
Yeah, no, I'm with Simon on this. I mean, it was way more exciting than I anticipated for the last race. Like Simon, as you and I were talking about a little bit earlier, right? Thought it was going to be a little bit of a ho-hum type of race to end the season, but it was tremendous action, right after the lights went out, right? And thanks to Verstappen, right, for pushing it. Unfortunate for Piastri and later for others, but what an amazing race. And with Leclerc being able to jump up that many positions and Hamilton being able to move up so far. And I loved it. I mean, I was really rooting for Ferrari to score as many points as possible. I love McLaren as well and what they've been able to do all season long. So it was a great way to cap off the season for McLaren. And I think that Lando said it best at the end of the race. He said, Zach and I said, we're getting hammered later.
Yeah. Hopefully with Lewis as well, right? They're all getting hammered.
Yeah. With Lewis, I mean, the last race, there was a little bit of concern and heavy emotions being able to be with Mercedes as long as he was and such a consistent car and such a consistent team. But exactly as you guys are saying, I mean, he showed through his championship mark and dominance over the last several years to be able to come up and be able to take fourth. That was exciting.
Yeah. Ray?
It was a good race. Quite a bit of action and some drama because what happened with Charles and also what happened with Lewis. But it made it exciting. And on the Lewis coming in fourth, if you all recall, Toto gave the warning to George, right? He told George just straighten up and fly right. So George did it. It was a good race overall.
I enjoyed it as well, and I'll say it that I'm wearing a Vodafone McLaren Mercedes hat, but it's really in honor of Lewis first, and then McLaren for winning their first constructors title, I think since '98. So that's huge. So hats off to them, and Ray's wearing it, Lewis Mercedes. I'm not mad at Max for the start, because that's a racing driver. Their center said it best. I'm a racing driver, and I will always go for a gap. And that's what he did. Little ambitious, but thank God they made it out. But poor Oscar fared the worst for that one. But McLaren still came through and won. But yeah, I thought it was a great race.
Yeah.
So Simon,
Yes.
What are your views on Mercedes' send off for Lewis? How do you feel about that?
A little lackluster initially. I think we should have been celebrating a little bit more this entire week, but I'm biased, right? I'm a Lewis fan.
Correct.
I really thought that, he set a record, 12 seasons with the same constructors and manufacturer, right? And 7 championships with them. So no one else has done that. And even though he's leaving, there should have been, a farewell tour or some sort of something this week that really would have been over the top, I believe. But I am biased towards Lewis. I want him to succeed also at Ferrari, wherever he goes. He's definitely, in my opinion, shed a lot of light on individuals that probably never thought racing was something that they could participate in. And he's kind of set that foundation. So I'm always going to root for him and always going to be thankful of him in that sense. But a little lackluster, Ralph, to answer your question. And then they kind of did the right thing today, but I wish it would have been all week. Right.
Ondar, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's just tremendous to be able to see what Lewis and Mercedes have been able to accomplish. I am, just to be fully transparent, an Alonso fan, but I completely respect Hamilton and what he's been able to accomplish. It's unbelievable. So I think that Mercedes is probably, I think it boils down to people. Lewis is a person. Toto Wolff is a person. They have a team of people, and there's a lot of emotions that have gone through, right? Now seeing Lewis move to Ferrari, which is always kind of that, hey, we're going to move to the ultimate F1 team, Ferrari, and leaving Mercedes, and obviously Mercedes issues over the last couple of years. But they proved themselves to definitely be a team to be dealt with this season, even though they've had their ups and downs. And so I think for Lewis, he was able to, collect what he was looking for in the Vegas race, which I attended, which was amazing. That was unbelievable what he and Russell were able to do. And so a little blip last race and then be able to bring it back for the big show at the end of the season. That was tremendous. And so Mercedes being able to do the send off, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get this exactly right, quoting Toto, but it was something along the lines of, if we don't win, we want you to win. And that was pretty classy and obviously extremely well deserved for Hamilton and what he's been able to do for Mercedes and the entire sport.
Right?
Well, yeah. Contrary, I think Mercedes did okay with Lewis and his send-off, right? Because there are other drivers that are not getting anything per se. But yeah, I think they did all right because they brought him onto the front straight. They gave him his own placard where he parked his car. He was able to do donuts. So I think that was pretty good. And the fact that he was able to, come up through the line, and then be able to then, pass George, that, it just icing on the cake for what they were doing. Right. And so I think they did okay. And Lewis has done a lot for the sport, right? Not only on track, but what he's brought, I would attest that the diversity that we see in the sport is contributed to Lewis and his efforts.
Yes,
right? And he's gone out to make sure that it's been a more inclusive. Yes, the overall franchise changed, but he put that change, he all pushed to say, hey, we need to be more diverse, more inclusive, and things like that. So I think they did all right, and it's going to be interesting to see how he blends with the Italian culture, And
Yes.
that
Good
is,
point.
where it is, because I keep hearing people saying, well, I hope he's learning Italian, because Italians are very passionate about certain things. We'll see how that blends out.
You're right about that, because Michael, when he raced for them, everyone was concerned that he was German, and he wasn't going to be able to integrate into the team. And he actually went in there and pulled everyone closer together because he ingratiated himself with the team. Vettel spoke Italian, and would, most times when he would win, he would congratulate them in Italian over the radio. Lewis, from what I see of Lewis, he'll fit in. He'll learn the lay of the land. I would be shocked if he goes in there and he doesn't. I believe he's able to pull together the people that he needs on his side, and then they go from there. So I don't think he'll have a problem. But you're right, the Tifosi, they embrace their drivers. Once they already started embracing him, and he's not in red yet. But they already started welcoming him in. So I think he'll be fine. Back to Mercedes and what they did for Lewis. It's funny also. I don't want to call it an event, but it was a meeting. Told Lewis to come on up to this track. Lewis thought he was going up there to drive a couple AMG cars, and they had, if I remember correctly, 3 of his past Mercedes cars that he's driven, with the banner over the garage saying "Thank you, Lewis" on top of it. And then he got to go out and take laps in those cars, relive some of those memories. So I think they did okay. I think they did well for Lewis. I'm not mad at them for anything with that. I mean, there was a comment about the slogan, every dream needs a team, that some people were in uproar about. And I could see that. Even Nico Rosberg had a comment about that, like saying, hey, what do you mean every dream needs a team? And Anthony Davidson saying every team needs a dream driver. But I think they redeemed themselves well. So of the race, what about the start? Opinions on Max's pass or attempted pass on Oscar. Let's get into that. Let's start with Ondar this time.
I love the fact that Verstappen was not taking a back seat, considering that he already won the championship, as of the Vegas win on the driver's side. He stayed aggressive, and that's what you need in this sport. You have to stay aggressive. You don't want to be unsafe, and I don't think he was. He tried, as you said, he dove in. Didn't work, obviously, out for Piastri. As a result, obviously, Verstappen suffered a 10-second penalty, and so did Piastri, which is always interesting how those rules work through the FIA. But I was excited about the start because I thought, again, it was going to be a little bit of a boring start, but it was action right out of the gate, which is exactly what F1 needs every single race. So I was happy with Verstappen's start. Unfortunate for Piastri.
Right?
Well, I think, Max was overly optimistic as usual. Listen, when Max gets on the track, he's the only one allowed to pass people wherever and whenever he wants. And that's how I took this one. It's just like, from the onboards, it was very optimistic with his attempt. I feel bad that Oscar got spun to the outside, so he had to wait till the end of the train go by for him to get back in there. Mm-hmm. Whereas Max spun to the inside, and he then was able to just hit back in there and be in the mix again. I think the penalty was fair, right? That they levied, since it seems like the FIA now has gotten more stringent on penalties. Yeah, he just threw it up the inside, but that it's typical Max.
Simon?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I said that's Max being Max, right? And part of his allure and part of his fan base love when he's aggressive like that. I think it was par for the course for Max. I like the fact that Piastri didn't budge. He didn't, give in. And I have a feeling he's going to be a champion one day. Piastri has really, really surprised me this year. He was on the radar last year, but this year, I think his composure, the way he races, the way he conducts himself on and off the track, to me, is very champion-like. And I have a feeling he's going to give Lando a very hard time next year. I know Lando said in his post-race statement that he's going to go for the championship next year, but he's going to have a hard time defending his championship or pursuit of with Piastri right behind him.
I agree. I'll say this, though. I saw the onboard. And okay, Max, it was ambitious to dive down the inside from where he was, throwing a Hail Mary in there. But when you saw his hand on the wheel, he wasn't opening it up. He still had it turned in, like he's trying to get into the corner. The car started moving to the outside, and then Oscar, whether he knew he was there or not, Oscar was actually trying to come in to take the apex, right? So, yeah, I think it was justified. I contrast that to the penalty that Bottas got on Perez on lap 31. I thought that was uncalled for, because Sergio was coming in. His rear inside tire clipped the outer edge of Bottas's wing, right? Bottas wasn't all the way in there. And I looked at that and I thought that was a racing incident. I was like, you know what? It's not like he was aggressively trying to get in there, but he was there. I didn't agree with that penalty, but yes, I do agree that Max, that was a little ambitious. It didn't work. If it worked, we would have been like, wow, this guy's on fire. You win some, you lose some.
I say, especially for a two-time world champion. Come on now. You have better situational awareness. Max is a three-time world champion?
Four.
Sorry. Four.
I see where you're going. Yeah. Three definitely. Three for sure.
Four. We're gonna leave it at four.
Right. Well,
so anyway, he has better situational awareness. So he knew before he dived what the car was going to do before he got in there. That to me is more like a rookie move, like a Colapinto move, right? Because you're just going on just pure young exuberance and not really thinking through your process and knowing what's up. And I think, for me, when I saw him do that, I knew he knew, and he's just like, okay, whatever. So, yeah.
That was the adrenaline. But didn't that totally change the shape of the whole race?
Yes.
True. Yes, it did.
It almost handed Ferrari the constructors if Lando had a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and Leclerc fighting back from how far down he was, and we were just talking about Lewis, right, and his continued ascendance in the sport, and obviously now moving to Ferrari. But I also think you got to give props to what Sainz and Leclerc have been able to do this season. Yeah. That really, I think, give kind of a massive platform. Not that Lewis really needs it, but a massive platform in terms of building on success. Right, this is not a losing season for Ferrari at all. Right, they're second in constructors. Right. You had Sainz winning more races than he ever has before, Leclerc as well, and so that gives, I think, a platform where Lewis now racing with Leclerc for Ferrari. I think that's a huge deal, because I think you said, Ralph, as far as the Tifosi and the whole Ferrari. I mean, this is not just a team. Yeah. This is an entire country that is behind Ferrari, and then across the world. Yes. And so whether or not you were a Hamilton fan before or not, if you love Ferrari and if you live in Italy and you follow F1 at all, you are now just about instantly a Hamilton fan.
Yeah. You reminded me of something, Ondar. In another life, I was at an event and we had people in from Europe as well, and talking with people. And one person was from Italy. Formula One came up, we started talking, and I said, so what team are you, do you like? And his response was, well, I'm Italian, so for me, the only color is red. And that says a lot about the Tifosi. The Italian fans, red. That's it.
That's a good segue for a question I want to ask you guys. I'm going to make a statement first, but I do believe that next season is going to be probably the best year in Formula One. That's just my hope and dreams, because everyone has tasted a little bit of victory. Mm-hmm. And when a champion tastes a little bit of victory, it is hard to hold them back for not going after the whole entire thing, right? So you got Leclerc, you got Sainz, of course, but he's going to Williams, which is a little sad. You got Lewis, has always been a part of it. You got Verstappen, you got Lando, and you got Piastri. And Russell, all, with different teams, all with some ambition to be champions or continue to be champions. I think it's going to be the first 5 races next year really going to be interesting. And I have a feeling we're never going to know exactly who is the favorite for each track for the first 5 to 10 races.
Yeah. Now, being that you said that, Simon, you brought up something. It was an interesting list of drivers, right? What you said. You said Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Lewis, George. Who's missing? Perez, somebody that was driving a car that is capable of winning, right? So here's what I'm asking. Who believes he's going to return with Red Bull next year? I would be very surprised.
Perez is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be like an NFL buyout, right? They made a decision too early in the season for Perez, and they have the money, Red Bull, to buy him out. And from everything you hear from other drivers on the grid and the teams is people love Checo.
Yeah.
And so that's unfortunate for him that this season has just been atrocious, from a performance standpoint. And obviously, if he was just a little bit better, things would have been exponentially different for Red Bull and the constructors. I'm excited that it wasn't from the Constructors' Championship, and it really was a fight between McLaren and Ferrari, who have, not been really in it for so many years. But yeah, I don't think he can survive.
The question is who would be his replacement. But yeah, I would be very surprised if he returns next year.
Yuki.
Oh, thank you for saying that. You just jogged my memory again. Somewhere during the race, one of the commentators mentioned that they might be leaning more towards Liam.
Yeah,
right?
They did say that, Lawson.
I heard that. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, okay, why? Yuki is capable. He's there, but my opinion, I think his what's the word I'm looking for? Like his he's not in full control of his emotions. Like he can, go.
He's not polished. He's not polished.
That's one way of saying it. But he's a stick of dynamite. You could be a stick of dynamite, but you have to be able to contain it and put it out in a certain way. He's not that. And I think that if it's not him, that is what's hurt him.
Well, so, all right. Can I jump in on this one?
Sure.
I said, all right. So you got to remember that the year that Albon was out, he was racing with Lawson in the DTM series, and they did some other sports car series, right? And I think so. He doesn't have Formula One experience, but he has, racing experience, because they even did Le Mans, I believe, then almost came in. I can't remember if they I think they just missed the podium, I think, in that race. So he has the ability, right? But I think it'd be great for Yuki to be there for Formula One, because things would be on fire. But, I think they might be just saying maybe they'll go with Lawson, because, people would be tuning in to have the Yuki and Verstappen show at race time, because because Yuki, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Do you want two hot heads in your camp? I don't know if that's a wise thing, but yeah, that would be interesting and very entertaining for all parties involved, right?
Kind of on the heels of that, like the question is how much does Verstappen play a role in this decision?
That's true.
I'd say a lot, because he has Helmut Marko on his side, right? And Helmut Marko wields a lot of power. So a lot goes into, with Verstappen and his dad and Marko, it goes, because I think we had a dispute before where the team principal had to step out against all of them, right? And he got some heat for it. So he plays a lot for it, So
quick question, if you don't mind. Ondar, this is for you, because Ralph and Ray and I have asked this question to ourselves and answered it, I think. But what do you think happened to Checo this year?
From on track, it's hard to say, because there doesn't seem to be anything that was upsetting the car. And obviously Verstappen didn't have the best car, but he was able to make the most out of it. He had a top 5 car, and he was able to make the most out of it and get a tremendous amount of wins, which shows his true racing capability. So when I look at it just on the surface, I believe that the car was not there, and this showcases what your true talent is as a driver. And I believe once Checo started not to win, it affected his emotions, and it went into a downward spiral from there all season.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing I want to circle back when you guys said Yuki having that kind of a personality with Max, it reminded me of a comment Bernie Ecclestone said recently. He said there were a lot of characters in Formula One in the early years, and by him saying that, Yuki would be a character. Kimi Räikkönen was the last modern character in Formula One. Like, he was no nonsense. He said whatever was on his mind, and it wasn't PC all the time, and he didn't care. But he could back it up on the track. So I think that's what we see now. Where, you know, when you just said that, I realized we're in a sort of a sterile type of a climate with the drivers, because even Max getting a penalty for profanity, where, you know, he got fined. He got
Yeah.
fined because he, you know, used some profanity at some point, where you hear it elsewhere, you know, coming across. I think that, yeah, Yuki, that might bode negatively for Yuki, because they're not looking for that kind of character anymore. It's total line. Know
If
how
I
to
could jump
handle
in one
yourself.
more time, I believe Yuki deserves the opportunity to do it because he's pulled that car up and he's been stellar with the car this year. However, yes, the systems are against him because Honda had to pressure Red Bull to put him on the test. So he's going to probably do the test, you know, I guess next week or something like that. But yeah, he deserves the opportunity to do it. And I think he should get the chance, right? If you're really promoting from within, that's the recipe from promoting from within, right? He drove for your junior team. He showed he has a capability there. So, you know, you need to come on and see if he can do it in a senior team, right? And so I hope he gets the opportunity to do it and they don't really, you know, push Lawson above him and, you know, go because, yeah, you know, Drive Survive is going to really skyrocket in viewership come year after next when it goes live on Netflix with Yuki's there for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. We'll see what happens. I mean, we know he has the ability. He has the measure of his teammates for the most part, right? He has. So that's the only thing I see that I'm like, it might be that.
I have to agree with you on that, Ralph, though, with Yuki, because Simon, you mentioned the term, which is right on target, which is maturity. And you see that with drivers, usually within the first 2 seasons, like Verstappen, right? It was just out there, right? His attitude, the way he spoke to the team over the radio, but then he learned and he became more mature and he became a little bit more humble. Yuki has not gotten there. Yuki needs to understand how to support his team, how to not say certain things, ball those up and talk to the team in private behind the scenes, because that does not bode well, not only from, I would say, his own brand, his personal brand, but then it doesn't bode well for the team, right? Because the team's hearing that and they're working their tails off 24 hours a day to give him the best car they can. And he comes back consistently insulting the team over the team radio.
Totally agree. So now that Simon and Ondar have mentioned maturity, we have to say, not that he was immature from a racecraft, Lando Norris.
Oh, absolutely.
Grown immensely, right?
This season as well,
season
right?
What's on that?
If you don't mind me just starting, I think there was a race, I want to say 2 or 3 races ago. I'm not sure if it was Vegas or the one before that, if it was Brazil, but he really just kind of emotionally lost it, in my opinion. Even when the reporters were asking him questions, he made a statement. Well, I hear that all the time. I just, can we go on to the next question? And, he was a little frustrated with everything that was going on. And that's par for the course of learning your craft, right? If everything was easy, or if it was going to be easy, everyone would do it, right? And he has the talent, and it's very important. And you can see it from Lewis. I remember when I first started watching Formula One, I had questions about Lewis's maturity, right? I was just scratching my head. I'm like, why is he saying these things? Why is he acting like that? Well, right. And I've seen over the years that now he understands, as he's getting older, that patience is a virtue in that sense. And you have to really understand that your team, your human beings, are going to make mistakes, or they're striving for perfection. And when you strive for perfection, you either hit it on the nail or you completely miss the nail, right? And that's what Yuki is going to have to realize too, is that your team is striving for perfection as well, just like you are, and they're going to make mistakes and miss. But Lando this year, I'm telling you, watch out for him next year.
Oh yeah,
he has a taste of victory now, and once you have a taste of that, and you know what it feels like, you want it over and over again. It's an adrenaline impact to you as well.
Yeah, Norris has been amazing. Obviously starting off a little bit late in the season, but come on strong. And obviously McLaren would not be where they are with winning the Constructors' Championship if it wasn't for Norris. Piastri would not have been able to do it. So he definitely has a talent. They have, I believe, the best car this year. So I think it's always a measure of a driver's capability is, can they only win when they have the best car?
Mhm.
And from this season, I kind of see, right, the true talent that Lando has, but I'm not sure if he's at the level of Verstappen. Verstappen showed this year without the best car, plain and simple, that he can come back from last place and get to the podium. I have not seen that with Lando. So to the point made, Lando continues to mature. So next season, we'll see where he's at. And Piastri is going to be a good fighter to be able to help push him. And I think that'll be the question. Can you dominate without the best car?
I think, yes, this was a growing thing for Orlando, right? Because he has the pace. He knows how to get it done. But I think some of his decisions over the season kind of came back and bit him. And I think he's learned from that. And, I think this season has made him a better driver, right? As far as going forward to go fight for the championship. Yeah, he'll be all right. Next year, he'll be in the mix. Again, we're all, as people, we all hope that when we get, as we go through experiences, we pick up on the things that we did wrong so that we don't repeat them, right? And I think he's had the opportunity to notice that, because even in his last interview for the race, I kind of got that sense that he noticed that he made some mistakes during the season, and I think he's recognized them, and he put them aside and say, okay, we won't be doing that again. So yeah,
I agree. I think I agree. To Ondar's point, yes, I know I said it in a past episode that we had that Lando needs to develop his ability to pass Max. And I remember I said, if that's Fernando will know how to get around him. If it's Lewis knows how to get around. They know how to force a very experienced driver into a position that allows them to get around. And that's what I see from Lando, that he still has to develop that. He could pass other guys. He could pass Charles. He can pass Carlos. But Max is a different animal. Max is he's a world champion like Lewis and Fernando. And those three guys, you really have to be on your A game to pass him. So I think in that aspect, he still has a lot to learn. He has to get a little bit more ruthless, but calculating and precise with that, right? But I think he's grown. I'm not going to say he's a future world champion yet, because he needs to get those things under control. Because next year, if let's say Lewis, the Ferrari is good and the Red Bull is good and the McLaren is good, he's going to have to get his elbows out to get around these guys to get the position he needs. So, but I do think he's maturing. And to Simon, what you said of Lewis when he first came in, yes, his first season, he could have been a rookie world champion, but he didn't know when to back off and he wanted to beat Fernando all the time. And he was always pushing. And there were a couple races where it's like, no, Fernando could finish ahead of you, play the points game, but he was playing, I need to win, and it cost him. China was where he ultimately lost it, when he spun off in the wet going into the pit and beached the car, and then that was the end of that. But he lost that by 1 point that year. So maturity comes. I like what I see from Lando, but yeah, Oscar is also coming up, so it's going to be interesting.
So not to belabor the point, but I just wanted to throw this in there on the back end. So I think Lando had a problem with Max because of how Max changes when he's on track, right? Because they were friends, right? The same thing, Charles had an issue with Max because how Max changes. He's ruthless on track. Just call it for what it is. And I think you just reminded me that, yes, in his exit interview for this event, he brought that up. And I think it's now it's resonated with him that he now knows that, if he used to go for Max again, he will go. Because remember, before they got up there, Norris was a hard person to pass, right? Most times, you knock wheels with Norris before you got around him. But I think, my opinion is that his friendship with Max was so deep that he didn't realize that, friends are all off when Max puts his helmet on, right? He's not I'm going to say keep it PC. He's a very aggressive driver. He drives to the edge of the rules, right? And I think Lando's aware of that now. I believe Charles is aware of that now. So I think that if in the future, if it were to come around next year, I think they know how to approach him now. It's an all or nothing game when it comes to him. Right?
Well, just to close that out, to say I agree. And that is what I believe Oscar did with Max at the start. He didn't move over to give him room. He held his line. And that's sending a message. And that brings me back to an interview years back with Martin Brundle about Senna, when Brundle was a race car driver as well, racing with him. And he said that Senna would leave it to you. He would put his car in a position that left it up to the other driver if you were going to have an accident or not. And he said, and if you jumped out of the way and let him through, he knew he had you. The difference with the other drivers close to his caliber, like Prost of that time, is they'll just, okay, we're both out. they're not going to move. And that sends a message like, don't play. That's kind of what they have to do with Max. That's what Lewis tried to do with Max, and then they were penalizing him for it. I remember that season where I was like, no, Lewis, I know what he's doing. He's letting Max know I'm not going to jump out of your way. But then the FIA came in and penalized him for it and favored Max. So anyway, just to close that out. Final thoughts, anyone?
I want to talk about Ferrari, though, because if you don't mind, I think what I found interesting with the race was how fast Charles was able to come up through the field. Yes, he did well on the start. He took off quite a few guys, so he was in the mix. But I just, when I compare that to Lewis, but I understand now what was ailing Lewis, right? Because the hard tires were hard to come in. So it was, he didn't have the car under him that he needed, right? And not until towards the end of his stint where they extended out did he then, it seemed like the tires came alive, right, for him to do it. But still, I was very shocked. I'll be honest, shocked with how Leclerc came through, Charles came through the field. It's just, it reminded me of like when Max is coming through the field, everybody just parts and gets out his way and he just drives on by. No, let me stop. But no, I want to say that. And I wanted to say this. I feel for Carlos. Yes, I'm a Lewis fan, but I'm kind of melancholy about the whole situation, right? Because Carlos, is a good driver. It's just like I said last week on our thing that, if they were able to really be more spec oriented, we would see all the other great drivers that are all on the grid, right? And to see that, yes, he's going over to Williams to help build and all that stuff, but it is what it is.
Sainz has done amazingly well this season. Going to Williams will be really interesting to see what they can do next year with a driver, the talent that Sainz has. I would have thought before it was all announced, knowing that Audi's coming next year, which is a huge, huge, huge piece for the sport, that Sainz would have went with Audi, personally. Much better chance, middle of the field already, and taking it to a next level. But it'll take a couple of years, I think, for Audi to kind of figure things out. As a constructor, obviously, they've got experience on the team already. I also look at next season, and the question I have is, who are we excited most to see next season? Which driver? So I'll put that to the team here.
Well, I'll answer both comments or questions then about Ferrari. So Ferrari, I was actually pretty proud of Ferrari and how they ended this year. I think Lewis going to them, he's in a good position to compete from the very, very beginning. You mentioned something about spec cars on our last podcast, and on this one is Ray, that I think we have some of that competition right now with about 6 drivers, even though they're different manufacturers. I think that's as close as we're going to get as having spec cars. Everyone right now is really on par to win any race at this point. Who am I looking forward to? I'm going to take Lewis out of the equation because I'm biased towards him. So anybody but Lewis. I'm Piastri for sure. I want to see how he's doing. He's turning into one of my favorite drivers. And I want to see how Lando fares with Verstappen going forward and Charles. I really want to see those 3 and see how they're going to compete next year. But Piastri, I have my eye on him for sure. I like him a lot.
If I could jump in, Ondar is going to love this. The driver that I want to see what happens is Fernando. Because although I'm not a Fernando fan per se like that, he has such ability that I want to see if the Adrian Newey coming in is not really going to affect the 2025 car that much. That would be for 2026. But I want to see if Aston Martin can get a car under him, man, the magic you'll see from him when he comes. So that's a driver I'm going to look at. And yes, I'm a Lewis fan, and I'm rooting for Lewis to come in there and crush it at Ferrari. But I also want to see Fernando, because he's been quietly back there, and you see how good he is with a car that's not that fast. He's in one of them, and you see the ability he has. I want to see if he moves up, because I would love to see a three-way fight between those three world champions and anyone else that could come in. I would love to see that.
Newey's in next year's car, right? Even though they're saying not, don't believe the hype. He is in next year's car. If he can't say, oh, put this on, he could say, well, I wouldn't do it if I were you. And that's the same message being sent. Or he can not talk and not talk to the point. Oh, that's a great idea. You can just be quiet. So Newey's in the next car. I think if they were able to field a car, yes, Alonso coming into the mix would make it very interesting. Yeah. As far as, me having a favorite driver aside from Lewis, again, I like Oscar, because, my mom used to have a saying, silent water runs deep. Right. And I'll break it out and say, people that don't talk a lot, they're doing deep thinking. Right. And I think Oscar is ready to step out and show who he is. So it's going to be challenging next year, for the other drivers when he shows up, not only for his teammate, but for the other drivers. Yeah, I think my number 2 guy would be Oscar. Yeah. My, behind Lewis would be Oscar.
What's yours, Ondar? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think this season has really been, I think, magical for fans of the sport, whether, you're veteran fans or you're new to the sport. It's been tremendous. And if you would have mentioned this gentleman's name at the beginning to be excited about, I would never have agreed. But looking at the kind of the second half of the season in the last few races, Gasly.
Yes.
Really good. And Alpine has been coming up really well, in the top, 5, 6, 7 spots. He's qualified well. He qualified, I believe, 3rd in Vegas. He had an engine issue where it literally just crapped out on him. But he's looking very racy, still young, very hungry. And I think Alpine as a team is doing pretty well. So I say Gasly.
That's a good one.
Well, I second that. Yeah.
Okay.
I second that. Yeah.
Well, with that said, we're going to bring to a close this episode. It's been a great race. I think we all came away happy with the outcomes.
Can we leave off with some predictions for next year? Just the first race, maybe? I'm sad I'm going to say this, but I think it's going to be Verstappen. I think he's going to win the first race.
If Newey, I'm not sure what Newey can do within a couple of months, as far as making it, making any changes. But I'm not sure about Max. I think Ferrari, if they, I think they're going to show up.
Ondar?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in here. So we've got Melbourne, right? Australia's back on as the first race of the season, which I'm super excited about.
Yes,
I missed that was a miss, I think, for this season, for it not to be the starting point. So with that, and I look at which driver and fan base is closest to that, it's Piastri, right?
Yeah.
Great year racer. He's a Kiwi. So I'm going to go with Piastri.
I'm going to go safe and say Lando will win the first one. I mean, I may revise that after I see, winter testing and so on, and see how they're going, even though it's hard.
Now I'm sticking with mine.
I'm going to say Lando.
Man, it's just going to be so exciting. I just can't wait. Got to wait 3 months. Sucks, but it's all good.
It's like, can't wait. Absolutely.
Can't wait. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Fellas. We'll see you at the start of the next season with our breakdown of the Melbourne Grand Prix. Until then, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all things The Fellas. Thanks you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us, Ondar. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Ray, Ralph, and Simon. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
All right. Absolutely.